Welcome back to the Seven Dials Mystery by Agatha Christie. So far, we've uncovered a shocking death, cryptic clues, and whispers of a secret society. But the mystery is only deepening. In this next part, more secrets will be revealed, suspicions will rise, and the truth will feel closer than ever, yet still just out of reach. What lies ahead? Who is hiding what? Let's dive back in and continue unraveling this thrilling puzzle. Jimmy's words lifted the discussion at once into a more practical sphere. All things considered, he said, we haven't got much to go on. In fact, just the words Seven Dials. As a matter of fact, I don't even know exactly where Seven Dials is. But anyway, we can't very well comb out the whole of that district house by house. We could, said Bundle. Well, perhaps we could eventually, though I'm not so sure. I imagine it's a well-populated area, but it wouldn't be very subtle. The word reminded him of the girl's socks, and he smiled. Then, of course, there's the part of the country where Ronnie was shot. We can nose around there, but the police are probably doing everything we could do, and doing it much better. What I like about you, said Bundle sarcastically, is your cheerful and optimistic disposition. Never mind her, Jimmy, said Lorraine softly. Go on. Don't be so impatient, said Jimmy to Bundle. All the best sleuths approach a case this way, by eliminating unnecessary and unprofitable investigation. I'm coming now to the third alternative, Gerald's death. Now that we know it was murder, by the way, you do both believe that, don't you? Yes, said Lorraine. Yes, said Bundle. Good. So do I. Well, it seems to me that there we do stand some faint chance. After all, if Jerry didn't take the chloral himself, someone must have got into his room and put it there, dissolved it in the glass of water, so that when he woke up he drank it off. And of course left the empty box or bottle or whatever it was. You agree with that? Yes, said Bundle slowly. But wait, and that someone must have been in the house at the time. It couldn't very well have been someone from outside. No, agreed Bundle, more readily this time. Very well. Now, that narrows down things considerably. To begin with, I suppose a good many of the servants are family ones. They're your lot, I mean. Yes, said Bundle. Practically all the staff stayed when we let it. All the principal ones are there still. Of course, there have been changes among the underservants. Exactly. That's what I'm getting at. You, he addressed Bundle, must go into all that. Find out when new servants were engaged. What about footmen, for instance? One of the footmen is new. John, his name is. Well, make inquiries about John, and about any others who have only come recently. I suppose, said Bundle slowly, it must have been a servant. It couldn't have been one of the guests. I don't see how that's possible. Who were there exactly? Well, there were 3 girls, Nancy and Helen and Socks. Socks Daventry? I know her. May have been. Girl who was always saying things were subtle. That's Socks all right. Subtle is one of her words. And then there was Jerry Wade and me and Bill Eversley and Ronnie. And of course, Sir Oswald and Lady Coote. Oh, and Pongo. Who's Pongo? Chap called Bateman. Secretary to old Coote. Solemn sort of cove, but very conscientious. I was at school with him. There doesn't seem anything very suspicious there, remarked Lorraine. No, there doesn't, said Bundle. As you say, we'll have to look amongst the servants. By the way, you don't suppose that clock being thrown out of the window had anything to do with it? A clock thrown out of the window, said Jimmy, staring. It was the first he had heard of it. I can't see how it can have anything to do with it, said Bundle. But it's odd somehow. There seems no sense in it. I remember, said Jimmy slowly, I went to see poor old Jerry, and there were the clocks ranged along the mantelpiece. I remember noticing there were only 7, not 8. He gave a sudden shiver and explained himself apologetically. Sorry, but somehow those clocks have always given me the shivers. I dream of them sometimes. I'd hate to go into that room in the dark and see them there in a row. You wouldn't be able to see them if it was dark, said Bundle practically. Not unless they had luminous dials. Oh. She gave a sudden gasp, and the color rushed into her cheeks. Don't you see? 7 dials. The others looked at her doubtfully, but she insisted with increasing vehemence. It must be. It can't be a coincidence. There was a pause. You may be right, said Jimmy Thesiger at last. It's dashed odd. Bundle started questioning him eagerly. Who bought the clocks? All of us. Who thought of them? All of us. Nonsense. Somebody must have thought of them first. It didn't happen that way. We were discussing what we could do to get Jerry up, and Pongo said an alarm clock, and somebody said one would be no good, and somebody else, Bill Eversley, I think, said, "Why not get a dozen?" And we all said, "Good egg," and hoofed off to get them. We got one each and an extra one for Pongo and one for Lady Coot, just out of the generosity of our hearts. There was nothing premeditated about it. It just happened. Bundle was silenced, but not convinced. Jimmy proceeded to sum up methodically. I think we can say we're sure of certain facts. There's a secret society with points of resemblance to the mafia in existence. Jerry Wade came to know about it. At first he treated it as rather a joke, as an absurdity, shall we say. He couldn't believe in its being really dangerous. But later something happened to convince him, and then he got the wind up in earnest. I rather fancy he must have said something to Ronnie Devereux about it. Anyway, when he was put out of the way, Ronnie suspected, and he must have known enough to get on the same track himself. The unfortunate thing is that we've got to start quite from the outer darkness. We haven't got the knowledge the other two had. Perhaps that's an advantage, said Lorraine coolly. They won't suspect us, and therefore they won't be trying to put us out of the way. I wish I felt sure about that, said Jimmy in a worried voice. You know, Lorraine, old Jerry himself wanted you to keep out of it. Don't you think you could? No, I couldn't, said Lorraine. Don't let's start discussing that again. It's only a waste of time. At the mention of the word time, Jimmy's eyes rose to the clock, and he uttered an exclamation of astonishment. He rose and opened the door. Stevens. Yes, sir. What about a spot of lunch, Stevens? Could it be managed? I anticipated that it would be required, sir. Mrs. Stevens has made preparations accordingly. That's a wonderful man, said Jimmy, as he returned, heaving a sigh of relief. Brain, you know, sheer brain. He takes correspondence courses. I sometimes wonder if they do any good to me. Don't be silly, said Lorraine. Stevens opened the door and proceeded to bring in a most recherché meal. An omelet was followed by quails and the very lightest thing in soufflés. Why are men so happy when they're single? Said Lorraine tragically. Why are they so much better looked after by other people than by us? Oh, but that's rot, you know, said Jimmy. I mean, they're not. How could they be? I often think, he stammered and stopped. Lorraine blushed again. Suddenly Bundle let out a whoop, and both the others started violently. Idiot, said Bundle. Imbecile. Me, I mean. I knew there was something I'd forgotten. What? You know Cotters, George Lomax, I mean. I've heard of him a good deal, said Jimmy. From Bill and Ronnie, you know. Well, Cotters is giving some sort of dry party next week, and he's had a warning letter from Seven Dials. What? Cried Jimmy excitedly, leaning forward. You can't mean it? Yes, I do. He told Father about it. Now what do you think that points to? Jimmy leant back in his chair. He thought rapidly and carefully. At last he spoke. His speech was brief and to the point. Something's going to happen at that party, he said. That's what I think, said Bundle. It all fits in, said Jimmy almost dreamily. He turned to Lorraine. How old were you when the war was on? He asked unexpectedly. 908. And Jerry, I suppose, was about 20. Most lads of 20 fought in the war. Jerry didn't. No, said Lorraine, after thinking a minute or two. No, Jerry wasn't a soldier. I don't know why. I can tell you why, said Jimmy. Or at least I can make a very shrewd guess. He was out of England from 1915 to 1918. I've taken the trouble to find that out, and nobody seems to know exactly where he was. I think he was in Germany. The color rose in Lorraine's cheeks. She looked at Jimmy with admiration. How clever of you. He spoke German well, didn't he? Oh, yes, like a native. I'm sure I'm right. Listen, you two. Jerry Wade was at the Foreign Office. He appeared to be the same sort of amiable idiot. Excuse the term, but you know what I mean, as Bill Eversley and Ronnie Devereux. A purely ornamental excrescence. But in reality, he was something quite different. I think Jerry Wade was the real thing. Our Secret Service is supposed to be the best in the world. I think Jerry Wade was pretty high up in that service. And that explains everything. I remember saying idly that last evening at Chimney's that Jerry couldn't be quite such an ass as he made himself out to be. And if you're right, said Bundle, practical as ever, then the thing's bigger than we thought. This Seven Dials business isn't merely criminal, it's international. One thing's certain, somebody's got to be at this house party of Lomax's. Bundle made a slight grimace. I know George well, but he doesn't like me. He'd never think of asking me to a serious gathering. All the same, I might. She remained a moment lost in thought. Do you think I could work it through, Bill? Asked Jimmy. He's bound to be there as Cotter's right-hand man. He might bring me along somehow or other. I don't see why not, said Bundle. You'll have to prime Bill and make him say the right things. He's incapable of thinking of them for himself. What do you suggest? Asked Jimmy humbly. Oh, It's quite easy. Bill describes you as a rich young man, interested in politics, anxious to stand for Parliament. George will fall at once. You know what these political parties are? Always looking for new, rich young men. The richer Bill says you are, the easier it will be to manage. Short of being described as Rothschild, I don't mind, said Jimmy. Then I think that's practically settled. I'm dining with Bill tomorrow night, and I'll get a list of who is to be there. That will be useful. I'm sorry you can't be there, said Jimmy. But on the whole, I think it's all for the best. I'm not so sure I shan't be there, said Bundle. Cotters hates me like poison, but there are other ways. She became meditative. And what about me? Asked Lorraine in a small, meek voice. You're not on in this act, said Jimmy instantly. See? After all, we got to have someone outside to what? Said Lorraine. Jimmy decided not to pursue this tack. He appealed to Bundle. Look here, he said. Lorraine must keep out of this, mustn't she? I certainly think she'd better. Next time, said Jimmy kindly. And suppose there isn't next time, said Lorraine. Oh, there probably will be. Not a doubt of it. I see. I'm just to go home and wait. That's it, said Jimmy, with every appearance of relief. I thought you'd understand. You see, explained Bundle. 3 of us forcing our way in might look rather suspicious. And you would be particularly difficult. You do see that, don't you? Oh, yes, said Lorraine. Then it's settled. You do nothing, said Jimmy. I do nothing, said Lorraine meekly. Bundle looked at her in sudden suspicion. The tameness with which Lorraine was taking it seemed hardly natural. Lorraine looked at her. Her eyes were blue and guileless. They met Bundle's without a quiver even of the lashes. Bundle was only partly satisfied. She found the meekness of Lorraine weighed highly suspicious. Now it may be said at once that in the foregoing conversation each one of the 3 participants had, as it were, held something in reserve. That nobody tells everything is a very true motto. It may be questioned, for instance, if Lorraine Wade was perfectly sincere in her account of the motives which had led her to seek out Jimmy Thesiger. In the same way, Jimmy Thesiger himself had various ideas and plans connected with the forthcoming party at George Lomax's, which he had no intention of revealing to, say, Bundle. And Bundle herself had a fully fledged plan which she proposed to put into immediate execution, and which she had said nothing whatever about. On leaving Jimmy Thesiger's rooms, she drove to Scotland Yard, where she asked to see Superintendent Battle. Superintendent Battle was rather a big man. He worked almost entirely on cases of a delicate political nature. On such a case, he had come to Chimneys 4 years ago, and Bundle was frankly trading on his remembering this fact. After a short delay, she was taken along several corridors and into the superintendent's private room. Battle was a stolid-looking man with a wooden face. He looked supremely unintelligent and more like a commissionaire than a detective. He was standing by the window when she entered, gazing in an expressionless manner at some sparrows. Good afternoon, Lady Eileen, he said. Sit down, won't you? Thank you, said Bundle. I was afraid you mightn't remember me. Always remember people, said Battle. He added, got to my job. Oh, said Bundle, rather damped. And what can I do for you? Inquired the superintendent. Bundle came straight to the point. I've always heard that you people at Scotland Yard have lists of all secret societies and things like that are formed in London. We try to keep up to date, said Superintendent Battle cautiously. I suppose a great many of them aren't really dangerous. We've got a very good rule to go by, said Battle. The more they talk, the less they'll do. You'd be surprised how well that works out. And I've heard that very often you let them go on. Battle nodded. That's so. Why shouldn't a man call himself a brother of liberty and meet twice a week in his cellar and talk about rivers of blood? It won't hurt either him or us. And if there is any trouble any time, we know where to lay our hands on him. But sometimes, I suppose, said Bundle slowly, a society may be more dangerous than anyone imagines. Very unlikely, said Battle. But it might happen, persisted Bundle. Oh, it might, admitted the superintendent. There was a moment or two's silence. Then Bundle said quietly, Superintendent Battle, could I have a list of secret societies with headquarters in 7 Dials? It was Superintendent Battle's pride to have never been seen to display emotions of any kind. Bundle could have sworn that just for a moment his eyelids flickered. He was taken aback, only for a moment. After that, he was his usual wooden self. Strictly speaking, Lady Eileen, there's no longer such place as 7 Dials. No, most of it is pulled down and rebuilt on. It was rather a low quarter but nowadays it is a respectable and high-class part town. Not at all romantic spot to search for mysterious secret societies. Oh, said Bundle, rather taken aback. But all the same, I should like to know what put that neighborhood in your head, Lady Eileen. Have I got to tell you? Well, it saves trouble if we know where we are, so to speak. Bundle hesitated for an instant. There was a man shot, she said slowly. I thought I had run him over. Mr. Ronald Devereux. You know about it, of course. Why has there been nothing in the papers? Do you really want to know that, Lady Eileen? Yes, please. Well, we just thought we should like to have a clear 24 hours, see? It will be in the papers tomorrow. Oh. Bundle studied him, puzzled. What was hidden behind that immovable face? Did he regard the shooting of Ronald Devereux as an ordinary crime, or as an extraordinary one? He mentioned 7 dials when he was dying, said Bundle slowly. Thank you, said Battle. I'll make a note of that. He wrote a few words on the blotting pad in front of him. Bundle started on another tack. Mr. Lomax, I understand, came to see you yesterday about a threatening letter he had. He did, and that was written from 7 dials. It had 7 dials written at the top of it, I believe. Bundle felt as though she was battering hopelessly on a locked door. If you'll let me advise you, Lady Eileen, I know what you're going to say. I should go home and, well, think no more about these matters. Leave it to you, in fact. Well, said Superintendent Battle, after all, we are the professionals, and I'm only an amateur. Yes, but you forget one thing. I mayn't have your knowledge and skill, but I have one advantage over you. I can work in the dark. She thought that the superintendent seemed a little taken aback, as though the force of her words struck home. Of course, said Bundle, if you won't give me a list of secret societies, oh, I never said that. You shall have a list of the whole lot. He went to the door, put his head through, and called out something, then came back to his chair. Bundle, rather unreasonably, felt baffled. The ease with which he acceded to her request seemed to her suspicious. He was looking at her now in a placid fashion. Do you remember the death of Mr. Gerald Wade? She asked abruptly. Down at your place, wasn't it? Took an overdraft of sleeping mixture. His sister says he never took things to make him sleep. Ah, said the superintendent. You'd be surprised what a lot of things there are that sisters don't know. Bundle again felt baffled. She sat in silence till a man came in with a typewritten sheet of paper, which he handed to the superintendent. Here you are, said the latter when the other had left the room. The Blood Brothers of Street. Sebastian, the Wolfhounds, the Comrades of Peace, the Comrades Club, the Friends of Oppression, the Children of Moscow, the Red Standard Bearers, the Herrings, the Comrades of the Fallen, and half a dozen more. He handed it to her with a distinct twinkle in his eye. You give it to me, said Bundle, because you know it's not going to be the slightest use to me. Do you want me to leave the whole thing alone? I should prefer it, said Battle. You see, if you go messing round all these places, well, it's going to give us a lot of trouble. Looking after me, you mean? Looking after you, Lady Eileen. Bundle had risen to her feet. Now she stood undecided. So far the honors lay with Superintendent Battle. Then she remembered one slight incident, and she based a last appeal upon it. I said just now that an amateur could do some things which a professional couldn't. You didn't contradict me. That's because you're an honest man, Superintendent Battle. You knew I was right. Go on, said Battle quickly. At Chimneys you let me help. Won't you let me help now? Battle seemed to be turning the thing over in his mind. Emboldened by his silence, Bundle continued. You know pretty well what I'm like, Superintendent Battle. I butt into things. I'm a nosy Parker. I don't want to get in your way or to try and do things that you're doing and could do a great deal better. But if there's a chance for an amateur, let me have it. Again there was a pause, and then Superintendent Battle said quietly, You couldn't have spoken fairer than you have done, Lady Eileen. But I'm just going to say this to you. What you propose is dangerous. And when I say dangerous, I mean dangerous. I've grasped that, said Bundle. I'm not a fool. No, said Superintendent Battle. Never knew a young lady who was less so. What I'll do for you, Lady Eileen, is this. I'll just give you one little hint. And I'm doing it because I never have thought much of the motto safety first. In my opinion, half the people who spend their lives avoiding being run over by buses had much better be run over and put safely out of the way. They're no good. This remarkable utterance, issuing from the conventional lips of Superintendent Battle, quite took Bundle's breath away. What was the hint you were going to give me? She asked at last. You know Mr. Eversley, don't you? No, Bill? Why, of course. But what? I think Mr. Bill Eversley will be able to tell you all you want to know about 7 dials. Bill knows about it? Bill. I didn't say that. Not at all. But I think, being a quick-witted young lady, you'll get what you want from him. And now, said Superintendent Battle firmly, I'm not going to say another word. Bundle set out to keep her appointment with Bill on the following evening, full of expectation. Bill greeted her with every sign of elation. Bill really is rather nice, thought Bundle to herself. Just like a large, clumsy dog that wags its tail when it's pleased to see you. The large dog was uttering short staccato yelps of comment and information. You look tremendously fit, Bundle. I can't tell you how pleased I am to see you. I've ordered oysters. You do like oysters, don't you? And how's everything? What did you want to go moldering about abroad so long? Were you having a very gay time? No, deadly, said Bundle. Perfectly foul. Old diseased colonels creeping about in the sun, and active, wizened spinsters running libraries and churches. Give me England, said Bill. I bar this foreign business. Except Switzerland. Switzerland's all right. I'm thinking of going this Christmas. Why don't you come along? I'll think of it, said Bundle. What have you been doing with yourself lately, Bill? It was an incautious query. Bundle had merely made it out of politeness, and as a preliminary to introducing her own topics of conversation. It was, however, the opening for which Bill had been waiting. That's just what I've been wanting to tell you about. You're brainy, Bundle, and I want your advice. You know that musical show, Damn Your Eyes? Yes. Well, I'm going to tell you about one of the dirtiest pieces of work imaginable. My God, the theatrical crowd. There's a girl, a Yankee girl, a perfect stunner. Bundle's heart sank. The grievances of Bill's lady friends were always interminable. They went on, and there was no stemming them. This girl, Babe Street. More her name is, I wonder how she got that name, said Bundle sarcastically. Bill replied, literally. She got out of Who's Who, opened it, and jabbed her finger down on a page without looking. Pretty nifty, yeah? Her real name's Goldschmidt or Abramere. Something quite impossible. Oh, quite, agreed Bundle. Well, Babe Street. Moore is pretty smart, and she's got muscles. She was one of the 8 girls who made the living bridge. Bill, said Bundle, desperately. I went to see Jimmy Thesiger yesterday morning. Good old Jimmy, said Bill. Well, as I was telling you, Babe's pretty smart. You gotta be nowadays. She can put it over on most theatrical people. If you want to live, be high-handed. That's what Babe says. And mind you, she's the goods all right. She can act. It's marvelous how that girl can act. She not much chance in Damn Your Eyes. Just swamped in a pack of good-looking girls. I said, why not try the legitimate stage, Mrs. Tanqueray? That sort of stuff. But Babe just laughed. Have you seen Jimmy at all? Saw him this morning. Let me see, where was I? Oh, yes. I hadn't got to the rumpus yet. And mind you, it was jealousy, sheer, spiteful jealousy. The other girl wasn't a patch on Babe for looks, and she knew it. So she went behind her back. Bundle resigned herself to the inevitable and heard the whole story of the unfortunate circumstances which had led up to Babe Street. Moore's summary disappearance from the cast of Damn Your Eyes. It took a long time. When Bill finally paused for breath and sympathy, Bundle said, You're quite right, Bill. It's a rotten shame. There must be a lot of jealousy about the whole theatrical world's rotten with it. It must be. Did Jimmy say anything to you about coming down to the Abbey next week? For the first time, Bill gave his attention to what Bundle was saying. He was full of the long rigmarole he wanted me to stuff Cotters with, about wanting to stand in the conservative interest. But Bundle, it's too damned risky. Stuff, said Bundle. If George does find him out, he won't blame you. You'll just have been taken in. That's all. That's not at all, said Bill. I mean, it's too damned risky for Jimmy. Before he knows where he is, he'll be parked down somewhere like Tooting West, pledged to kiss babies and make speeches. You don't know how thorough Cotters is and how frightfully energetic. Well, we'll have to risk that, said Bundle. Jimmy can take care of himself, all right. You don't know Cotters, repeated Bill. Who's coming to this party, Bill? Is it anything very special? Only the usual sort of muck. Mrs. Macata for one. The M. Yes. Always going off the deep end about welfare and pure milk and save the children. Think of poor Jimmy being talked to by her. Never mind Jimmy. Go on telling me. Then there's a Hungarian, what they call a young Hungarian. Countess something unpronounceable. She's all right. He swallowed, as though embarrassed, and Bundle observed that he was crumbling his bread nervously. Young and beautiful, she inquired delicately. Oh, rather. I didn't know George went in for female beauty much. Oh, he doesn't. She runs baby feeding in Budapest, something like that. Naturally, she and Mrs. Macata want to get together. Who else? Sir Stanley Digby, the Air Minister? Yes, and his secretary, Terrence O'Rourke. He's rather a lad, by the way, or used to be in his flying days. Then there's a perfectly poisonous German chap called Herr Eberhard. I don't know who he is, but we're all making a hell of a fuss about him. I've been twice told off to take him out to lunch, and I can tell you, Bundle, it was no joke. He's not like the embassy chaps, who are all very decent. This man sucks in soup and eats peas with a knife. Not only that, but the brute is always biting his fingernails, positively gnaws at them. Pretty foul, isn't it? I believe he invents things, something of the kind. Well, that's all. Oh yes, Sir Oswald Coote. And Lady Coote? Yes, I believe she's coming too. Bundle sat lost in thought for some minutes. Bill's list was suggestive, but she hadn't time to think out various possibilities just now. She must get on to the next point. Bill, she said, what's all this about 7 dials? Bill at once looked horribly embarrassed. He blinked and avoided her glance. I don't know what you mean, he said. Nonsense, said Bundle. I was told you know all about it. About what? This was rather a poser. Bundle shifted her ground. I don't see what you want to be so secretive for, she complained. Nothing to be secretive about. Nobody goes there much now. It was only a craze. This sounded puzzling. One gets so out of things when one is away, said Bundle in a sad voice. Oh, you haven't missed much, said Bill. Everyone went there just to say they had been. It was boring, really, and my God, you could get tired of fried fish. Where did everyone go? To the 7 Dials Club, of course, said Bill, staring. Wasn't that what you were asking about? I didn't know it by that name, said Bundle. Used to be a slummy, sort of district roundabout Tottenham Court roadway. It's all pulled down and cleaned up now. But the 7 Dials Club keeps to the old atmosphere. Fried fish and chips, general squalor, kind of East End stunt, but awfully handy to get at after a show. It's a nightclub, I suppose, said Bundle. Dancing and all that. That's it. Awfully mixed crowd. Not a posh affair. Artists, and all sorts of odd women and a sprinkling of our lot. They say quite a lot of things, but I think that that's all bunk of myself. Just said to make the place go. Good, said Bundle. We'll go there tonight. Oh, I shouldn't do that, said Bill. His embarrassment had returned. I tell you it's played out. Nobody goes there now. Well, we're going. You wouldn't care for it, Bundle. You wouldn't really. You're going to take me to the 7 Dials Club and nowhere else, Bill. And I should like to know why you were so unwilling. Unwilling. Painfully so. What's the guilty secret? Guilty secret? Don't keep repeating what I say. You do it to give yourself time. I don't, said Bill indignantly. It's only, well, I know there's something. You never can conceal anything. I've got nothing to conceal. It's only, well, it's a long story. You see, I took Babe Street. More there one night. Oh, Babe Street. More again. Why not? I didn't know it was about her, said Bundle, stifling yawn. As I say, I took Babe there. She rather fancied a lobster. I had a lobster under my arm. The story went on. When the lobster had been finally dismembered in a struggle between Bill and a fellow who was a rank outsider, Bundle brought her attention back to him. I see, she said. And there was a row? Yes, but it was my lobster. I'd bought it and paid for it. I had a perfect right. Oh, you had, said Bundle hastily. But I'm sure that's all forgotten now. And I don't care for lobsters anyway. So let's go. We may be raided by the police. There's a room upstairs where they play baccarat. Father will have to come and bail me out. That's all. Come on, Bill. Bill still seemed rather reluctant, but Bundle was adamant, and they were soon speeding to their destination in a taxi. The place, when they got to it, was much as she imagined it would be. It was a tall house in a narrow street. 14 Hunstanton Street. She noted the number. A man whose face was strangely familiar opened the door. She thought he started slightly when he saw her, but he greeted Bill with respectful recognition. He was a tall man, with fair hair, a rather weak, anemic face, and slightly shifty eyes. Bundle puzzled to herself where she could have seen him before. Bill had recovered his equilibrium now, and quite enjoyed doing showman. They danced in the cellar, which was very full of smoke. So much so that you saw everyone through a blue haze. The smell of fried fish was almost overpowering. On the wall were rough charcoal sketches, some of them executed with real talent. The company was extremely mixed. There were portly foreigners, opulent Jewesses, a sprinkling of the really smart, and several ladies belonging to the oldest profession in the world. Soon Bill led Bundle upstairs. There the weak-faced man was on guard, watching all those admitted to the gambling room with a lynx eye. Suddenly recognition came to Bundle. Of course, she said. How stupid of me. It's Alfred, who used to be second footman at Chimneys. How are you, Alfred? Nicely, Thank you, your ladyship. When did you leave Chimneys, Alfred? Was it long before we got back? It was about a month ago, m'lady. I got a chance of bettering myself, and it seemed a pity not to take it. I suppose they pay you very well here, remarked Bundle. Very fair, m'lady. Bundle passed in. It seemed to her that in this room the real life of the club was exposed. The stakes were high. She saw that at once, and the people gathered round the two tables were of the true type. Hawk-eyed, haggard, with the gambling fever in their blood. She and Bill stayed there for about half an hour. Then Bill grew restive. Let's get out of this place, Bundle, and go on dancing. Bundle agreed. There was nothing to be seen here. They went down again. They danced for another half hour, had fish and chips, and then Bundle declared herself ready to go home. But it's so early, Bill protested. No, it isn't. Not really. And anyway, I got a long day in front of me tomorrow. What are you going to do? That depends, said Bundle mysteriously. But I can tell you this, Bill, the grass is not going to grow under my feet. It never does, said Mr. Eversley. Bundle's temperament was certainly not inherited from her father, whose prevailing characteristic was a wholly amiable inertia. As Bill Eversley had very justly remarked, the grass never did grow under Bundle's feet. On the morning following her dinner with Bill, Bundle woke full of energy. She had 3 distinct plans which she meant to put into operation that day, and she realized that she was going to be slightly hampered by the limits of time and space. Fortunately, she did not suffer from the affliction of Jerry Wade, Ronnie Devereux, and Jimmy Thesiger, that of not being able to get up in the morning. Sir Oswald Coote himself would have had no fault to find with her on the score of early rising. At 8:30, Bundle had breakfasted and was on her way to Chimneys in the Hispano. Her father seemed mildly pleased to see her. I never know when you're going to turn up, he said, but this will save me ringing up, which I hate. Colonel Melrose was here yesterday about the inquest. Colonel Melrose was chief constable of the county and an old friend of Lord Caterham. You mean the inquest on Ronnie Devereux? When is it to be? Tomorrow, 12 o'clock. Melrose will call for you. Having found the body, you'll have to give evidence. But he said you needn't be at all alarmed. Why on earth should I be alarmed? Well, you know, said Lord Caterham apologetically, Melrose is a bit old-fashioned. 12 o'clock, said Bundle. Good. I shall be here if I'm still alive. Have you any reason to anticipate not being alive? One never knows, said Bundle. The strain of modern life, as the newspapers say. Which reminds me that George Lomax asked me to come over to the Abbey next week. I refused, of course. Quite right, said Bundle. We don't want you mixed up in any funny business. Is there going to be any funny business? Asked Lord Caterham with a sudden awakening of interest. Well, warning letters and all that, you know, said Bundle. Perhaps George is going to be assassinated, said Lord Caterham hopefully. What do you think, Bundle? Perhaps I'd better go after all. You curb your bloodthirsty instincts and stay quietly at home, said Bundle. I'm going to talk to Mrs. Howell. Mrs. Howell was the housekeeper, that dignified, creaking lady who had struck such terror to the heart of Lady Coote. She had no terrors for Bundle, whom, indeed, she always called Miss Bundle, a relic of the days when Bundle had stayed at Chimneys, a long-legged, impish child, before her father had succeeded to the title. Now, Howley, said Bundle, let's have a cup of rich cocoa together, and let me hear all the household news. She gleaned what she wanted without much difficulty, making mental notes as follows. 2 new scullery maids, village girls, doesn't seem much there. New 3rd housemaid, head housemaid's niece. That sounds all right. Howley seems to have bullied poor Lady Coote a good deal. She would. I never thought the day would come when I should see Chimneys inhabited by strangers, Miss Bundle. Oh, one must go with the times, said Bundle. You'll be lucky, Howley, if you never see it converted into desirable flats with use of superb pleasure grounds. Mrs. Howell shivered all down her reactionary aristocratic spine. I've never seen Sir Oswald Coote, remarked Bundle. Sir Oswald is no doubt a very clever gentleman, said Mrs. Howell distantly. Bundle gathered that Sir Oswald had not been liked by his staff. Of course, it was Mr. Bateman who saw to everything, continued the housekeeper. A very efficient gentleman indeed, and one who knew the way things ought to be done. Bundle led the talk on to the topic of Gerald Wade's death. Mrs. Howell was only too willing to talk about it, and was full of pitying ejaculations about the poor young gentleman. But Bundle gleaned nothing new. Presently, she took leave of Mrs. Howell and came downstairs again, where she promptly rang for Treadwell. Treadwell, when did Alfred leave? It will be about a month ago now, my lady. Why did he leave? It was by his own wish, my lady. I believe he has gone to London. I was not dissatisfied with him in any way. I think you will find the new footman, John, very satisfactory. He seems to know his work and to be most anxious to give satisfaction. Where did he come from? He had excellent references, my lady. He had lived last with Lord Mount Vernon. I see, said Bundle thoughtfully. She was remembering that Lord Mount Vernon was at present on a shooting trip in East Africa. What's his last name? Treadwell. Bower, my lady. Treadwell paused for a minute or two, and then, seeing that Bundle had finished, he quietly left the room. Bundle remained lost in thought. John had opened the door to her on her arrival that day, and she had taken particular notice of him without seeming to do so. Apparently, he was the perfect servant, well trained, with an expressionless face. He had, perhaps, a more soldierly bearing than most footmen, and there was something a little odd about the shape of the back of his head. But these details, as Bundle realized, were hardly relevant to the situation. She sat frowning down at the blotting paper in front of her. She had a pencil in her hand and was idly tracing the name Bower over and over again. Suddenly an idea struck her, and she stopped dead, staring at the word. Then she summoned Treadwell once more. Treadwell, how is the name Bower spelt? B-U-E-R, my lady. That's not an English name. I believe he is of Swiss extraction, my lady. Oh, that's all, Treadwell, thank you. Swiss extraction? No, German. That martial carriage, that flat back to the head. And he had come to Chimneys a fortnight before Jerry Wade's death. Bundle rose to her feet. She had done all she could hear. Now to get on with things. She went in search of her father. I'm off again, she said. I've got to go and see Aunt Marcia. Got to see Marcia? Lord Caterham's voice was full of astonishment. Poor child. How did you get let in for that? Just for once, said Bundle. I happen to be going of my own free will. Lord Caterham looked at her in puzzlement. That anyone could have a genuine desire to face his redoubtable sister-in-law was quite incomprehensible to him. Marcia, Marchioness of Caterham, the widow of his late brother Henry, was a very prominent personality. Lord Caterham admitted that she had made Henry an admirable wife, and that but for her, in all probability, he would never have held the office of Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs. On the other hand, he had always looked upon Henry's death as a merciful release. It seemed to him that Bundle was foolishly putting her head into the lion's mouth. Oh, I say, he said, you know, I shouldn't do that. You don't know what it may lead to. I know what I hope it's going to lead to, said Bundle. I'm all right. Father, don't you worry about me. Lord Caterham sighed and settled himself more comfortably in his chair. He went back to his perusal of the field. But in a minute or two Bundle suddenly put her head in again. Sorry, she said, but there's one other thing I wanted to ask you. Was Sir Oswald Coote? I told you, a steamroller. I don't mean your personal impression of him. How did he make his money? Trouser buttons or brass beds or what? Oh, I see. He's steel and iron. He's got the biggest steel works, or whatever you call it, in England. He doesn't, of course, run the show personally now. It's a company or companies. He got me in as a director of something or other. Very good business for me. Nothing to do except go down to the city once or twice a year to one of those hotel places, Cannon Street or Liverpool Street, and sit round a table where they have very nice new blotting paper. Then Coote or some clever Johnny makes a speech simply bristling with figures. But fortunately, you needn't listen to it. And I can tell you, you often get a jolly good lunch out of it. Uninterested in Lord Caterham's lunches, Bundle had departed again before he had finished speaking. On the way back to London, she tried to piece together things to her satisfaction. As far as she could see, steel and infant welfare did not go together. One of the two, then, was just padding, presumably the latter. Mrs. Macata and the Hungarian Countess could be ruled out of court. They were camouflage. No. The pivot of the whole thing seemed to be the unattractive Herr Eberhard. He did not seem to be the type of man whom George Lomax would normally invite. Bill had said vaguely that he invented. Then there was the Air Minister and Sir Oswald Coote, who was steel. Somehow that seemed to hang together. Since it was useless speculating further, Bundle abandoned the attempt and concentrated on her forthcoming interview with Lady Caterham. The lady lived in a large, gloomy house in one of London's higher-class squares. Inside it smelt of sealing wax, birdseed, and slightly decayed flowers. Lady Caterham was a large woman large in every way. Her proportions were majestic rather than ample. She had a large beaked nose, wore gold-rimmed pince-nez, and her upper lip bore just the faintest suspicion of a mustache. She was somewhat surprised to see her niece, but accorded her a frigid cheek, which Bundle duly kissed. "This is quite an unexpected pleasure, Eileen," she observed coldly. "We've only just got back, Aunt Marcia." "I know. How is your father?" "Much as usual." Her tone conveyed disparagement. She had a poor opinion of Alastair Edward Brent, 9th Marquis of Caterham. She would have called him, had she known the term, a poor fish. "Father is very well. He's down at Chimneys." "Indeed. You know, Eileen, I never approved of the letting of Chimneys. The place is in many ways a historical monument. It should not be cheapened." "It must have been wonderful in Uncle Henry's day," said Bundle with a slight sigh. "Henry realized his responsibilities," said Henry's widow. "Think of the people who stayed there," went on Bundle ecstatically. "All the principal statesmen of Europe." Lady Caterham sighed. "I can truly say that history has been made there more than once," she observed. "If only your father—" She shook her head sadly. "Politics bore father," said Bundle, "and yet they are about the most fascinating study there is, I should say, especially if one knew about them from the inside." She made this extravagantly untruthful statement of her feelings without even a blush. Her aunt looked at her with some surprise. "I'm pleased to hear you say so," she said. "I always imagined, Eileen, that you cared for nothing but this modern pursuit of pleasure." "I used to," said Bundle. "It is true that you are still very young," said Lady Caterham thoughtfully, "but with your advantages, and if you were to marry suitably, you might be one of the leading political hostesses of the day." Bundle felt slightly alarmed. For a moment, she feared that her aunt might produce a suitable husband straight away. "But I feel such a fool," said Bundle. "I mean, I know so little." "That can easily be remedied," said Lady Caterham briskly. "I have any amount of literature I can lend you." "Thank you, Aunt Marcia," said Bundle, and proceeded hastily to her second line of attack. "I wondered if you knew Mrs. Macata, Aunt Marcia?" "Certainly I know her. A most estimable woman with a brilliant brain. I may say that, as a general rule, I do not hold with women standing for Parliament. They can make their influence felt in a more womanly fashion." She paused, doubtless to recall the womanly way in which she had forced a reluctant husband into the political arena and the success which had crowned his efforts. "But still times change, and what Mrs. Macata is doing is truly of the utmost value for all women. One may say, a true womanly work. Evidently, you must meet Mrs. Macata." Bundle gave a rather dismal sigh. "She's going to be at a house party at George Lomax's next week. He asked father, who of course won't go, but he never thought of asking me. Thinks I'm too much of an idiot, I suppose." It occurred to Lady Caterham that her niece was really wonderfully improved. Had she, perhaps, had an unfortunate love affair? An unfortunate love affair, in Lady Caterham's opinion, was often highly beneficial to young girls. It made them take life seriously. "I don't suppose George Lomax realizes for a moment that you have, shall we say, grown up?" "Eileen, dear," she said, "I must have a few words with him." "He doesn't like me," said Bundle. "I know he won't ask me." "Nonsense," said Lady Caterham. "I shall make a point of it. I knew George Lomax when he was so high." She indicated a quite impossible height. "He will be only too pleased to do me a favor, and he will be sure to see for himself that it is vitally important that the present-day young girls of our own class should take an intelligent interest in the welfare of their country." Bundle nearly said, "Here, here," but checked herself. "I will find you some literature now," said Lady Caterham, rising. She called in a piercing voice, "Miss Connor." A very neat secretary with a frightened expression came running. Lady Caterham gave her various directions. Presently Bundle was driving back to Brook Street with an armful of the driest-looking literature imaginable. Her next proceeding was to ring up Jimmy Thesiger. His first words were full of triumph. "I've managed it," he said. "Had a lot of trouble with Bill, though. He got it into his thick head that I should be a lamb among wolves. But I made him see sense at last. I got a lot of thingamybobs now, and I'm studying them. You know, blue books and white papers. Deadly dull, but one must do the thing properly. Have you ever heard of the Santa Fe boundary dispute?" "Never," said Bundle. "Well, I'm taking special pains with that. It went on for years and was very complicated. I'm making it my subject. Nowadays, one has to specialize. I've got a lot of the same sort of things," said Bundle. "Aunt Marcia gave them to me." "Aunt who?" "Aunt Marcia," father's sister-in-law. She's very political. In fact, she's going to get me invited to George's party. No? Oh, I say, that will be splendid. There was a pause, and then Jimmy said, I say, I don't think we'd better tell Lorraine that. Perhaps not. You see, she mayn't like being out of it, and she really must be kept out of it. Yes, I mean you can't let a girl like that run into danger. Bundle reflected that Mr. Thesiger was slightly deficient in tact. The prospect of her running into danger did not seem to give him any qualms whatever. Have you gone away? Asked Jimmy. No, I was only thinking. I see. I say, are you going to the inquest tomorrow? Yes, are you? Yes. By the way, it's in the evening papers, but tucked away in a corner. Funny. I should have thought they'd have made rather a splash about it. Yes, so should I. Well, said Jimmy, I must be getting on with my task. I've just got to where Bolivia sent us a note. I suppose I must get on with my little lot, said Bundle. Are you going to swat at it all the evening? I think so. Are you? Oh, probably. Good night. They were both liars of the most unblushing order. Jimmy Thesiger knew perfectly well that he was taking Lorraine Wade out to dinner. As for Bundle, no sooner had she rung off than she attired herself in various nondescript garments belonging, as a matter of fact, to her maid. And having donned them, she sallied out on foot, deliberating whether bus or tube will be the best route by which to reach the Seven Dials Club. And with that, the mystery grows deeper. Clues are falling into place, but the full picture is still just beyond reach. Who can be trusted? What secrets remain hidden? The answers are coming, piece by piece. Stay tuned for the next part, where the tension rises and more revelations unfold. If you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share your thoughts. Who do you suspect the most? The truth is getting closer. See you in the next part.